Gardening requires a lot of repetitious movement. Our low back, our legs, our hands, our shoulders get really tight. Here's some stretches and yoga poses that you can do before and after your gardening. This will improve your overall biomechanics, your posture, and especially the post-gardening tightness that we sometimes feel. Let's begin. Before you go to the garden, you might want to just sit down and have a stretch. With your arms in a cactus pose, take your hands back, spread your fingers, draw your elbows forward, draw your head back. Get this nice opening. Do that a few times. Just release your hands down and take your arms up. Reach the hands back. Just open the chest nicely. And release. And two more. Just open the chest, lean back. If you have a short back to your chair, that's even more beneficial because you can lean way back. Another way to do this would be to take your hands at the door frame, and as you push the hands on the door frame, you can open the chest. And yet another way is to work with a ball, any children's play ball, whatever. You can put just right behind the sternum and press back to do the same movement with the arms in this cactus pose. Just open the chest nicely. This is especially useful because when you're gardening, you're slumped over. This applies to cleaning, a lot of household activities. So you want to open up first, and afterwards, you can come out of that pose to all fours position. In all fours position, tuck your toes under. Lift your chin, lift your sit bones, and exhale. Lift from the navel back to your spine. Let your head release. This cat-cow pose is something we do so frequently. It's so useful to keep the spine nice and flexible. And after your gardening, by all means, you'll need this. But before, it's really beneficial as well. Just get this nice movement. And the spine moves much better in the afternoon than in the early morning. So if you have a choice, be sure to plan your gardening activities at a minimum a few hours after you've gotten up so that you can get just an opportunity for the spine to move, the hips, the shoulder joints. Another useful pose is a lunge. So step your right foot right between your hands. Take your hands right at your knee. Now it's really useful to be on your knees, of course. So rather than drawing yourself over in a standing pose, you can keep your spine a lot more elongated when you're kneeling, either in a lunge or with the knees hip distance apart. With the right foot forward, inhale, take your arms up, spread your fingers. Now slightly bend your elbows in the same way that we were just doing on the chair to really open the chest. And exhale, release your hands. Come to all fours position again with your toes tucked under. Allow this nice lengthening action of the spine as you press the palms down with the fingers spread. Release your head and get this nice fullness to the back body. On the next inhale, come up to all fours position and step your left foot forward. Once again, I've got the left knee right over the ankle. Inhale, take your arms up, take the hands wide apart. Get this nice opening to the chest. And in the same way, you can bend your elbows, draw your hands back. Just get the shoulder blades to become a little bit more engaged. Exhale, release your hands. Step back to all fours with your toes tucked under. Just draw your pelvis back again. You can move the pelvis side to side slightly. Invite the fullness of your breath to expand the back body. And as you're ready, come to all fours position. In this all fours position, lower yourself all the way to the mat. With your hands right alongside your ribs, inhale, just pulse and lift up. Exhale, soften. This shoulder work, this back strengthening work that we're doing in Cobra pose as you take an in-breath and rise up. Exhale and you soften. These are very useful before you garden, after you garden. They're just so useful in helping you to and just create a little bit more postural refinement. Release. And just keep on pulsing. Not very much weight on your hands. The strength is through the back muscles, not your arms. You can release. And just keep on pulsing. Several repetitions. Come back now to all fours position. To come to a standing position, however you wish, you can come through downward facing dog or not. Place your hands to your low back and rise up. In your standing position, bend your knees. Take the tops of your thighs back. When we're gardening, we're constantly leaning over and sometimes rounding the spine so much. So we want to keep a nice elongation of the spine, just like in this chair pose. Take your arms up. Take your hands nice and wide apart. Draw the pelvis down just a little bit more. Look right between your hands and take your hands even wider apart. See if you can draw the pelvis down just slightly more. Root down to inhale and rise up. Exhale and release your hands. As you bend your knees, you can take your forearms to the tops of the thighs. And with that, just reach to the floor and pick that imaginary weed up and do the same with the opposite hand. You're able to keep your spine in this nice elongated form as you're just reaching your hand down toward the earth. And it's building strength in the legs while still maintaining a nice protection for the back. Place your hands to the low back and rise up. Take a wide stance. In your wide stance, we'll do a variation to warrior pose. Turn your right toes out, bend your right knee. Reach your arms up in Virabhadrasana 2. Now, for the variation, take your back hand toward the front. Take your front hand to just give your shoulder a nice stretch. So as the left hand reaches forward, the right hand just helps you get this nice stretch, and you're just drawing yourself a little bit deeper into the pose. Inhale and Rise up out of your pose, come to the opposite side. Look at your foundation, line up from the front heel to the back arch before coming into the form of Virabhadrasana 2 or warrior pose. Take your back hand forward. Take your front hand to just urge just a little bit more stretching to the shoulder area. Shoulders can get so tight in our gardening. Go just a little bit deeper into your pose. Inhale and come out of the pose. Look at your feet. They should be parallel to each other. Interlace your fingers behind your back. Press your knuckles to the sacrum, to the low back. Draw your elbows in toward each other. Lift your chin to open the chest. With a slight bend to the knees, draw your heart forward and go slow. If you feel a lot of tightness behind your knees, then bend your knees a little bit more so that you can maintain a nice elongation of the spine before lifting your interlaced fingers up off your back. Release your head. Just nod your head yes and shake it no. Keep the interlaced fingers reaching toward the sky. Now just release your hands to your low back with your palms spread, with your knees bent. Press the flesh of your buttocks down toward the earth to rise up. Release and step your feet hip distance apart. Interlace your fingers again, this time in front of you, with your hands in front of you. Just create figure eights. Sometimes our wrists get quite tight in gardening and household activities. Now release your hands, pull each finger, just pull to get just a little bit more liveliness in that. Each finger, you're pulling very firmly. Interlace your fingers again and do a figure eight in the opposite direction. Big movement of your wrists. And now we'll do a clap with our fingertips. Press your fingertips, and as if you're clapping, can't hear it, but you're clapping with the fingertips, just kind of pressing in, just kind of creating almost like a claw action with your fingers as you press to provide strength in the fingers, slight resistance as you're doing this fingertip clapping. And release. In yoga, we like to end in a relaxation pose. For gardeners, the relaxation pose I recommend is with our legs up against the wall. So take your mat to the wall. With your mat at the wall, come to sit right by the wall. Come to a fetal position lying down and roll yourself over to take your legs up. Now, if your pelvis is not really close to the wall, especially for those of us with really tight hamstrings, that's fine. You can be away from the wall and you can have your knees bent. Some of us might be able to scoot a little bit closer to the wall. And if you don't feel this tight gripping behind the knees, then you might be a candidate for that. So spread your toes so that you can gain as much length as possible as you draw from the heels toward the pelvis to engage. And now expand from the pelvis to the heels. You first contract to get that engagement. That might require a little bending of the knees before expanding, stretching from the pelvis to the heels. Just close your eyes here. after maintaining your garden or doing a household activity, this opportunity to reflect, this opportunity to assimilate all that you accomplished, to organize for the next time you're in the garden. Just want to thank your body for all of its effort and give your body an opportunity to pause. Before moving on to the rest of the activities of your day. With your eyes closed, with your attention to your breath, you have a nice softening of the facial muscles. The flow of the breath is both very free and natural. Please stay here to pause before moving on to the activities of your day. But if you must move on, just very slowly come out of the pose. Be sure to hydrate yourself after your practice and honor the teachings of yoga. Namaste.